Welcome, everybody. Rebeka, we need to sometime maybe start recording early because I think it's so funny the way we decided what this episode would be.
I know it would be fun to have the recording and have like outtakes.
Well, it all started when last time we were talking, you had this great idea. You were telling me about something, and I'm like, oh my God, this is an episode. And I went to write it down, and I didn't have a pen. And I was like, I'll remember that.
Yeah, and I thought I'd remember too. I'm like, surely.
This is a great idea. I messaged her the same day, and I said, Rebeka, I totally forgot. Like, usually I can get like the gist of it, and I'm like, it was about this thing. And then you're like, oh yeah, this. But I had no clue, and you had no clue. You were like the quantum leaping stuff. And I was like, I don't think I would have gotten that excited because that's like, I feel like that's over my head a little bit.
Yeah. It was just funny. Like it completely left both of us.
And I was like, we'll get it. And we never got it, guys. We never got it. And we decided to meet again and record an episode. And we were like, we'll come up with an idea because that's what we do. And we sat down and had our little chat. And it was like, let's do it about this. And then you said something and it like reminded us. I don't know how it happened, but I was like, oh wait, this was what it was supposed to be about. And so all that to say is we got back to our idea, but we didn't let it stress us out over the whole week, mostly because we forgot about it.
Life happened and distracted us.
Yeah. But all that's to say is you don't have to have any clue what you're going to talk about. If you want a podcast, it comes to you and then you go, oh, that's the thing.
Yeah. Just share your ideas and your gifts and your stories.
Yeah. And today's thing is going to be, I don't know how exactly to say this. There's aura types in human design, and the projector is the most nuanced. It has the most different flavors.
Mm-hmm.
And Rebeka and I, and quite a few other mental projectors that I see when they're posting stuff anyway, have sort of separated out the mental projector flavor and said, hey, this gets its own ice cream store or I don't know, its own freezer. Like it's over here. It's not like we're not like separated, but segregated, but it's just not, it's not the same. There's nuances that make it a little bit too different. And as you pointed out, there was somebody else who posted something on social media about how we are close to the reflector in that way. And so it's kind of like generator, manifest, and generator, mental projector, reflector, which never really gets said out loud.
Yeah. So it's basically like we're like a hybrid of the projector and reflector. Like the Mani-Gen's a hybrid of the generator and manifestor. Yeah.
But that one people seem to like understand. But then when you say, mental projector is more like reflector, it's like, huh? How is that?
Yeah.
It doesn't have projector in the name, so it can't be the same, like,
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's just so interesting. And I know I've noticed this before in my own experiment, and we've talked about it even like with my long-term subbing experiment that happened, and how it was basically like 28 days and then it fell apart. And I'm like, okay, like how reflector is that? Like I just had to be in the experience.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. And like I've noticed how surprise and delight really flavors my life. Like that's when the best things happen, when I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I wanted that thing and now here it is.
I think I probably blend that into my innocence motivation when I feel surprise and delight, because it's very innocence motivation-y. So, but I'm going to pay attention more. Maybe I can like tell the difference or like separate it out. I don't know. We'll see. I'll experiment with it. But yeah, it's very much, it makes sense to me and to you and to a lot of reflectors I've even spoken to have asked me that, like, are we related in some way? And I was like, well, yeah, because we got this body down here that doesn't have stuff. And that's the main diff. Like splenic projector, emotional projector, everybody's like, we're all equal. Like I was saying before, no one's better than the other. We're different. And you all have something that binds you together, and it's a big something.
Mhm.
It's body definition. I like the way you said that earlier. Body
Yeah.
definition.
I mean, like even the self-projected projector has body definition that they can connect to.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not
And
motor definition, it's
no,
body definition, which is
yeah,
below the throat.
yes, yes. And it's a guidance, it's a direction that comes from that identity center, right? So every other type of projector has something in their body they can connect to get that authority.
Mhm.
And we do not, similar to the reflector that has no inner consistent authority.
Yeah, because I got no defined centers, so they really don't have. Theirs is different. The way to lunar cycle thing is a little bit different, but we can, as Rebeka so wonderfully put it, it can happen to us. We can
Mhm.
take that amount of time, because I feel like as mental projectors, we need the most amount of time out of any of the projectors. Does that feel right to you?
It feels right to me too. Yes, yes, because we need to process. Like we are open. We're affected by the transits too. We're affected by our environment. Granted, everybody's affected by their environment to a certain degree.
Yeah.
It's just for the mental projector, we're fairly dependent on it. So if we're in the incorrect environment, it's going to take longer for us to process something.
Mm-hmm. And I love how you talk about, especially as mental projectors, we are here to be conditioned. We're here to have these things around us affect us, like
Mhm.
the other people's auras or the transits or all that stuff, because conditioning is something that feels like you don't want it, you want to avoid it if you can, or like work with it somehow or minimize it, whatever. But this is something I'm still wrapping my head around, is that like that's what we're here for. Because it almost feels
Mhm.
like when I learned I was a third line, I was like, that sounds so hard. It sounds like no fun at all. It sounds painful and embarrassing.
I know, and you're not just a third line. You're
Like the third line.
yes.
Capitals 10. Capitals
Yes.
10. Doesn't make sense to anybody. I have 10 third lines in my chart. You have a lot too. What do you have, like 6?
I have
7?
five.
5?
And I
Okay.
have 8 1-lines.
Oh my Lord.
Doesn't
Okay.
that make so much sense?
Yes. So either way, we need a lot of time, and we need to be affected by our, not need to, but it very much behooves us to be affected by our environment and the people that we're with. Like that's what needs to happen for our stuff to go through, to like be
Yes.
processed. Sorry, I don't know why I needed to use like gigantic arms to say be processed, but I couldn't find the word. Like to process things,
Yeah.
we got to be affected by the outside things, and that sounds and feels like not right from what we've been conditioned our whole life. Is you don't want to rely on the outside world. You got to take care of yourself.
Right.
And nothing out there should affect you too much. You should be independent. You think things on your own. You make your own choices. None of this stuff should affect you. But it's supposed to affect us, which sounds
and it's like, excuse me, we have a projector aura and an open body. So yes, my friend, we are going to be deeply affected by
like the movie
everything
Twister. We're just sucking at everything in.
Yes. So
Like
I
pow
think
and everything.
what's interesting though, when you think about the reflector aspect, of course they have all the openness, but they have their aura to help protect them in a way. Like I was talking to a reflector friend about this recently, and she was saying how interesting it is. Like she can say something to someone, she can get upset at someone, and it's received in a totally different way. But if her projector friend even like looks at somebody funny, then they're upset. Because of the penetrating aura, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it's interesting to unpack, and where I really want to like discuss a little more like going forward, is because when we think about the Mani-Gen being the hybrid, they have the generator aura. So that's why people say you're a generator, you have the generator aura. I get it. But then they have that manifestor ability, the throat connected to motor, like we were talking about.
The super speed to manifestation situation.
Yes,
and the thing I think that makes them really good at multitasking, I think, is
absolutely
that situation.
Yeah, having that manifestor ability plus the sacral energy to move forward, like of course they're superhumans, like it's amazing. And so then when we think about the hybrid, of being a mental projector is like we have the projector aura, so we're a projector, but we have the openness, we have the kind of the superpowers of the reflector. And so it just, for me, like I feel like this manigen, it's like, oh well, this just gives you more powers. Like this just makes you cooler. But for mental projectors, I'm like, oh, this just makes us more sensitive.
Because we don't have the or Teflon aura of the reflector. That's cool the way you said it, because I always think of like stuff coming at the reflector and they just have their aura to be like boo boo boo, but I never thought of how coming out of their aura their energy is like buffered or softened or something, where
Yeah.
ours is just like, and they have like a, just like you said with that girl, she could say things that people were like cool with it, but this other girl, her energy, and it was probably the same words. And like, unless you know about human design, what are you going to do with that? You don't know what to do with that, because to be like, hey, your energy is really strong, so you have to pay attention to your timing. And you might have to process this thing that you want to say through all of your mental projector steps before. And even then, it's just something to accept that you're going to like, because you can't really not.
I know, it's mechanics. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And like, regardless, I know I'm curious if this has happened to you, because I know there's been times for me where I literally just look at somebody and they're like, what? I'm like, I
can't do anything at work without people like, what's on your mind? What, hey, who poking me, bugging me? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. And they're just like, well, you look like you're walking somewhere, or you're, like you said, the eyes, that's a big one, is they're like, you just looked at me? And I was like, no, I didn't. Like, leave me alone. Like,
I looked in your direction. I'm literally thinking about what I want to eat for lunch. Like, leave me alone.
When I greet tables, I try not to make eye contact for too long with any one person. I'm like, if there's more than one person, I'm all around. If it's one person, which is incredibly awkward to do, by the way, is serve one person. I just don't like it.
Good to know.
It's harder for me, I think, because my body, my energy is like, we need to connect one-on-one. But when it's more than one person, I'm like, oh, I got this.
Like
pow,
cool,
pow,
you
like
can
ping pong. Like, so you're out there. But when it's one-on-one, I'm like, oh shit, no, don't talk to them. You don't have time for this. Usually I don't have time for it, so it's fine. But yeah, I try not, I'm like, because I don't want to, people ask, I also have gate 13 in my incarnation cross, so people always
That's right.
tell me shit, and I'm like,
they'll just talk to you.
What? Like, you're cool. I had this chick one time at a table show me, like, get up and hike up her skirt to show me like her thigh, because she got drunk and fell off her bike and got like really bad road rash and like a bruise, and she was putting an ice pack on it, and she like frostbit her leg, so it was just like this frostbitten piece of leg, and she knocked on it, and I was like, because it was like a scab, essentially. It was horrific. And I didn't even, I was like, hey, hi, I'm Janelle. Like, this was like after I took their order and brought drinks. I was like, what the hell? Because she was like sitting uncomfortably. So she had to explain to me why she was sitting uncomfortably.
Oh my gosh. That gate 13 fascinates me.
It can, usually I'm cool because I forget a lot of stuff. Because not a lot of stuff is important to me, especially if the person isn't particularly important to me. I'm very good at like in one ear, out the other. I don't judge your weird shit. I didn't like look at her leg, but I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, what can I get you for dinner?
I know. I'm like, this is a terrible time to show this. You're in the middle of a restaurant. People are about to eat.
I was like, no one else can see this, right? Like, block this with my body. But yeah, it's actually pretty easy for me because I don't care. People could tell me the weirdest stuff and I'm just like, if it's people that I care about and are important to me, I guess I hold on to stuff more. But like, really, if you ask me about my coworkers' lives, they could have told me something 100 times and I'm like, I have no idea. Do you have kids? How old are you? Like, are you married? I don't know. I don't pay attention to you. I look like I am. And my energy says,
your energy is, they're probably like, wow, I feel so good talking to Janelle.
Yes. And that's why people come in, like all those servers come and tell me stuff. They're like, you never tell anybody anything. I'm like, that's because I literally forget it the second that you tell me. And I tell them this. I
Yeah.
say, hey. So I guess that makes me a really good secret keeper, in the fact is that I don't remember your secret.
Right.
Or if I do, if it's not has something to do with me, it shouldn't leave my mouth. Like that's just duh. So I guess I am a good secret keeper because I know that. But
Yeah.
like if I look at someone and go, oh yeah, they were talking to me about their messy divorce the other day, I'm not gonna go, there's no reason to say that out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no gossiping with it.
Although there are people at the restaurant who are widely known that if you tell them something, everybody's gonna know in like 5 minutes. We've tested it. It's fun. But yeah,
Oh
I don't
my
know how we
gosh.
totally got off tangent topic to gate 13. But anyway, suffice it to say that the open body thing is a big deal. And when we are saying that, this just means that we have no defined centers below the throat. Reflectors have no defined centers at all.
Yeah.
And we just have up here stuff, if you're newish. And it really changes how you make decisions, as you said, because they have authorities that are consistent in their body.
Yeah.
And
The other projectors.
and even if you're an emotional authority, which to me is probably like next up in line for how much time it takes to make decisions, because emotional authority, you got to give yourself time. That again, you can start to get like, oh, I know that this is going to take me some time to get through, and you might be able to gauge how much time if you keep a journal and you write down your emotional waves. This is a consistency thing you can track.
Right.
We have no tracking devices.
No.
no tracking. Splenic authority. Oh, write down your splenic hits. Cool, I got it. Thanks, guys. Like,
yeah, I can do a meditation and help you.
Self-projected, like
Like
talk,
literally just talk.
Record yourself and then listen to it again, and then you'll know the answer.
Yeah.
Us, it's like, well, bounce some shit off another person and then go walk around outside. Or
yeah,
the other way around, maybe. I don't know.
there's all kinds of things. Well, and I've been doing a little more research since this topic has entered my focus. I'm like, I want to unpack this. And so I've been doing more lectures from Raw about mental projectors. And like even he's like, here's the basics of it, but you're gonna have to rely on other projectors to wake you up. Like a mental projector can't wake up from anybody other than a projector. Because I forget what, it's just the projector to projector energy. And then he said also, like, and then you're gonna have to figure this out. Like, to put simply, he's like, like, you're the projectoriest of all projectors. He actually used this analogy in the very raw fashion. Okay, like you were talking about a pie, everyone's equal. He didn't say that. Like, he didn't have that perspective.
I was being nice.
I know. You're like trying to be kind. It's like, let's go to the heretical raw languaging and visuals.
I love it.
So he goes, it's like a sperm.
No, he did not. I have to hear this.
And the mental projectors are like in the front leading the way, and the other projectors kind of make up the rest of the body of the sperm.
So we are the head of the sperm.
Yes.
And every other projector is tail piece of sperm.
Yeah, basically.
Wow. Did he give a reasoning why he chose sperm specifically?
It's just raw. Like, you listen to enough raw, you don't question his.
I have to find this. You're gonna have to share this one with me because that's really good. I mean, I get it. It just doesn't feel that, like, I know I'm supposed to be like a leader and like the guide's guide and whatever, but especially the last few days has really not felt like that to me. I've gotten to this point of like, what the hell am I trying to do? Like with my program and with my stuff. And I guess, is this imposter syndrome? I've never had this
probably before. Yeah.
This doesn't make sense to me.
Let's unpack this. Yes, keep talking.
Well, this doesn't make sense to me because anytime people talk about imposter syndrome, I'm like, that is so dumb. I want people to love me. I want people to find me, to get over here. I'm not afraid to be found. I'm not hiding my gifts. Here they are. And then like, to me, that's how I've always felt about imposter syndrome. It doesn't make sense. I don't get it when people say that. Like, please, here I am. Like, I'm not. Isn't that what imposter syndrome is? Like, you're afraid that to be seen, or you're afraid to put out your stuff.
Yeah, basically, because you think
You're
that
afraid you're
once
going to
you
be
get
too
found,
popular.
well, it's basically like you kind of hide because you think subconsciously once you get found, someone will out you as an imposter. Like someone will come out and say, like, so that's kind of what's happening underneath,
I
right?
guess
Like,
I kind of do. To me, imposter syndrome has always been like the fear of success. Like when people say like fear of success, I guess maybe I'm confusing it a little bit, but to me, imposter syndrome seems like you're afraid of, you don't want people to see you. You're afraid to be seen because you're
mhm.
afraid you might get too big, or it might get bigger than you, or it might run, I don't know, it might spiral too fast, or I don't know, anything that's like success too hard. It's like that's like what I want. So it's always confused me, but maybe I've thought about this in the wrong way. I think maybe I have a little bit. But
Yeah.
anyway, suffice
Well,
it to say, the other day I was just like, what the hell? Like, what am I trying to do? What am I doing?
so
Who the hell am I? You know?
yeah, so that who the hell am I? That is kind of imposter syndrome. It's like, oh, like even if you haven't consciously sat there and thought, like thoughts have probably popped in your head of like, well, there's X, Y, and Z who are doing this better than me, so why should I even try?
Oh yeah,
Or,
yep.
you know, that kind of stuff. So that is kind of imposter too, where it's like, oh my gosh, someone's gonna hire me, and then they're gonna be like, this is bullshit. I should have just gone to this other person who's clearly better. Like,
Interesting.
yeah,
I think I feel like I'm different enough, and I understand now that energetically that's what people are looking for. They're not like
yes,
reading, you know, what your package is about. They're looking for you energetically. I've been trying to put more of my videos on my website so that people can see me and like hear my voice, because I feel like that's
yes.
energetically me. So I understand that thing a little bit, I think.
Yeah, well,
But
and it's sneaky, right? Because it's
yeah,
subconscious. So
yes.
where you can have this total like trust in yourself, like, yes, I have this specific energy, so I'll show up as this. There will be subconscious things that happen. I will also say that this happens, like this amplifies when you make steps to go bigger. Like you're moving into this alignment, you're moving into this choice of saying, I am an intuitive guide. I have these skills, I have these things, and I know that you want to embody this more so that you can do this more and leave the restaurant behind. And so
Mhm.
then there's like this fine tuning that happens. There's this, some people will say the universe will test you. I don't really like using the word test, but
Is
I
that why I got a speeding ticket? Is that what
yes.
that was? It's because I was speeding.
Janelle, these
It
things
was my
happen.
dumbass fault. I know, but like, come on. I
You
was
didn't,
speeding through like the nicest neighborhood, and I was like,
but
fuck, man, of
these
course.
things energetically happen.
I know. And it was after one of the worst nights I've had at the restaurant in like years, too, like years. So I was like,
Hmm.
what the fuck? Like I was crying in front of, I was not trying to like cry my way out of the ticket, but I was just so frustrated. I was just like, because he had
Yeah,
to go do some shit. And so I was just sort of crying. But
yeah.
I get it. I get it. Like I know that I'm safe, and I know once I have more space between me and these last few days that have felt kind of like what, I think I'll be
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
been
Well,
weird.
and I just say this like because I had this week last week where I was on like I'm just on the heels of working through one of these where like I can't even describe how dark it got for me,
Mhm.
questioning everything. And and then coming through that, like I had support with a coach and I was like, hey, here's what's happening. And I usually just shut down more. So I can see, and I can say this because I've been through it multiple times and I've seen how these little things come in. And it's like once I can work through it on this more aligned way of this higher vibe way, then I can see it from a different perspective and I can say, okay, this helped me because once I got through that, it helped me really solidify this level of vibration instead of letting it keep me down here,
Yeah,
if
I
that makes
know.
sense. But
Yes, I do know. And I think you're right. Everything's becoming like not harder, but I don't know. I feel, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
yeah.
Maybe we should go back to projector reflectors,
Yeah. Sorry.
mental projector. It's okay.
We
This
got
is
on a
how
whole
it
thing.
goes. This is how it
Yes.
goes.
Yes.
So like y'all, the other projectors, like we said, you kind of have sort of this consistency about you. Mental projectors really don't. And that's why we feel separate. That's why we're the head of the sperm and you're the tail of the sperm. Okay. And reflectors kind of have this superpower of their aura, which not only softens the blow of their energy coming out, but helps keep things from being so as it's coming in. So for us, it's like all the time because we absorb and amplify the energies. There's no amplification in a reflector spot like body. So they don't do the whole like we can do in our, and it's just, that's just, I don't know. Like you said, it feels very like, oh, come on. Like,
Yeah.
can't we get something like, can't we get like decision making from projectors or like superpower or protection from reflectors? No, you get none of those things.
Yeah.
You get to be the guide's guide and the guidiest of all guides.
It's like, guess what? The way to do that is to be deeply conditioned and super sensitive. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's so, I'm glad that we're laughing about it because we're always in our experiment, but at this point, I feel like both you and I can be at least somewhat objective to this kind of stuff and be like, oh shit, like this thing's happening now and it's affecting me way too much, but I'm just going to let it roll because it's energy moving throughout my body. Maybe I should go somewhere and empty out. Maybe I need to process it another way. Maybe I just need to lay down on the floor and cry.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine. But I don't know. It's not like we're not having fun in our lives and we're not having a great time. But sometimes it's hard. It is heavy to be a mental projector, I feel like.
Yeah. 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 One guy just found me on TikTok just this week and turns out he's a 1-3 mental projector with the channel of curiosity.
Oh man.
And like all of his comments on like I had this aversion to him at first because he would just make these really dark comments. He's like, being a projector is like it's exhausting. Like I don't know.
Kind of like that other person that I don't want to say the name out loud, that follows us
Yeah.
on Instagram and says some stuff where it's like
all the time. Like this is
mental, like a therapist. I don't know what you need.
right. And so, but then he did a mini reading with me on a live, and so then I got to see his chart, and so I got to unpack some stuff, and I'm like, okay, and then I started seeing him in a different way. I'm like, okay, dude, look, let's look at this, let's look at that. Because I made a comment earlier in the live, like, yeah, sometimes being a mental projector can be a lot, and he's like, only sometimes, and I'm like, yes, you get to choose your perspective. Like, I don't care what your energy is. Like, everybody has a difficult thing, everybody has this awesome thing. You get to choose your perspective on how you interact with your energy.
Oh my God, I hang on to my gate 58 and my motivation innocence like they are like my lifelines because I know that those are like, that's the reason I've always been trying to be as positive as I can. And it's always bothered me when I don't feel positive. Like when something happens and I'm like annoyed or pissed off, it's all since I was a kid, it's always like, why can't you just be positive? Like screw this. And and I never really let myself feel stuff because I needed to be positive all the time. And I mean, I've gotten away from that, but it's still nice to know that I can really reach being positive really quickly, even if I'm like shit happens and I'm really pissed off or I'm like crying and everything's happening all at once and I'm like, this is overwhelming. I know that when it's over, like I'll probably be tired, but I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And the next, and like, I'll have some clarity and some, like today I feel better than I did yesterday. And I know that tomorrow I'll feel better than I do today. So it's like, it's no
Yeah.
big, but
Nothing's ever permanent.
exactly. And having, like I said, having those pieces to kind of reach out and grab really helps me a lot. And I'll even think that, like, if I'm having like a really shitty mood or whatever, I'll be like, K50, hey, motivation, innocence. And then I'll like make a funny joke or like do some silly thing. And
Uh,
then I'm like, okay, I feel a little less like I'm
switches
taking
energy.
life so like seriously. I think that's what it
Yeah.
is I get really serious about
Yeah.
life. And my survival shit kicks in caves, and it's like, oh my God, you're gonna die. And then motivation innocence is like, oh, you're fine, relax. And gave 50 to
Yeah.
8, it's like, hey, did you see that flower over
Look how
there?
pretty it is.
Yeah, it all kind of like works itself out. But I feel like I wanted to not go first to the like, holy shit, everything's horrible moment, but I feel like I unconsciously go there, like knee-jerk reaction when something bad happens every time.
Yeah.
Like I just go immediately to like, oh no, now everything's falling apart. And now this bad thing's gonna happen and this thing and this thing and this. And it just kind of like automatically happens. But I can see it and I'm like, okay, this is all not true, but I feel like I have to let it play out. Am I supposed to just let it play out?
Yeah. Like when that energy is coming up, it's coming up for a reason. It's probably the old memories of stuff. I mean, like we just said, we're very susceptible to energies. So this could be, it makes sense that you would shut down a little bit and protect yourself and protect your energy. So in my experience, the more you lean into that, when those bad feelings come out, you just lean into them and really let them express
Like get
themselves.
real mad and get real like, I think maybe
Yeah.
that's what part of this is. I don't like that. And so
Yeah.
like when I get pissed off, like it'll come out as like a burst and then I'm like, or I'll cry, but I don't like people to see me. I don't like it to be noticed. Which is very unfortunate because whenever I cry, I get like super duper puffy eyeballs. So
Mm,
the next day, my eyes look like, it's hard to tell on the screen, but they're like this right now because I cried
yeah.
yesterday. And there's really nothing I can do about it. It's just, I like tried washing my face. I've tried like continuously splashing my eyes as I'm crying because I'm like, no, don't settle on my face. I looked up today. I'm like, can you be allergic to your tears? Because I was thinking about it,
Oh,
but you can't unless you're allergic to water, all water. And I'm like, well, I know I'm not allergic
yeah.
to water. So, um, but yeah, my eyes just like puff up. It always has been my whole life. And I think it's the main reason why I don't like to cry is because
Mm,
I wear like a flashing red badge of like, oh, I've been crying. And then everybody goes, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? You've been crying? What's wrong with you? And I'm like, it was yesterday. Leave me alone. Like, and also just cry. But
yeah.
everybody wants to know why it happened.
Yeah.
And so I've always had a hang up about it because that's always what happens to me is people just want to know what's wrong. What's wrong with you? Are you okay? What's wrong with you? And it's like,
Like
no.
I just needed to cry.
Yeah.
You know what?
And apparently it has to stay on my face for 24 hours afterwards. So
Yeah,
everybody knows.
I get that. I get that. One time when I was a junior head coach, I was just having a morning. And I was with these 8th grade girls who were about to be seniors. They're getting so big. Anyway, I we're doing the warm up for the workout, and then I just looked at them and I'm like, y'all, I'm serious, like I'm legit about to cry because they were just being crazy 8th graders. I was like, I'm about to cry.
Mhm.
Like y'all need to calm down. And then they just looked at me and I said, have y'all ever had a day where you just wanted to cry for no reason? Like it's just overwhelming. You just needed to cry. And and then they started sharing all these stories. It was so cute. One's like, yeah, I cried the other day because I was eating gummy bears and then there was only one left in the bag and that made me sad. So I started crying. And
Wow.
remember they're 8th graders. And then they just talked about like all these other random ways. And so they were just really cute. And they're like, it's okay, Coach Davila, you can cry.
Oh. Did you just cry all over them?
Yeah, so I was just like through the workout, I'm like, okay, it's time to run.
That's so cute.
So, so I don't know. Sometimes people like if you're like, yeah, I just needed to cry. People are like, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, and I know people understand. And I'm not as like, I used to be very, as a teenager,
Oh
15,
yeah,
16, I was
yeah,
like, if anyone, I had to like run away if I thought I was gonna cry. This is why I hated confrontation, because it was like instant cry fest.
yeah,
But now I understand that sometimes that's how my energy gets out, because
yeah,
stuff becomes really overwhelming and you think that you have it because you're working on all these things. You have human design, you have your tools, you meditate, yoga, walk, blah blah blah, you think you have it, and then
mhm,
something out of nowhere just comes and like gets you and puts you back into one of like my old like thought patterns, and like then I get really frustrated and I'm like, fuck, I have to cry, and then it's like, and then my head's like, just cry and get it over with. Oh, but no, then you're gonna have red face for like 3 days. What are you doing in the next 3 days? It's very much
oh
like
yeah.
it doesn't really last 3 days. I would say at most it lasts 2 days, but I'm real sensitive about it, I guess. But
I don't blame you. Yeah,
it's weird. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Lately I've been feeling like I need to get stuff out, but I don't really know how to do that. Except for like what I normally do, which is like walking, and I don't know what else gets stuff out.
um,
I yell at my
okay,
car sometimes.
that helps. I know you're not a big journal person, but let me present an idea. Um, like getting super honest, like just on paper and writing it all out and then burning it.
Uh, yeah, I get that. I I understand. I like that because then, like you said, it takes away my fear of me ever having to read it again to myself or
Right.
someone seeing it, which that's not really a big part of it. It's more me looking at it again and reading it and going, oh my God, why did you write this down? Like, you're such an idiot. Like, this is so stupid. Why would you even put this on paper? That's what I would think that's
Yeah.
sometimes what I think when I read stuff that I tried to write. When I was reading The Artist Way, and I was like, well, I guess I have to fucking journal because that's a part of this book. And so I tried to journal, and I read it back and been like, this is so like, first of all, what stuff that I was mad about that was silly, but then a lot of times it was just like, why did you even write this down? This is nothing like this. And I think it was just because I was like, I have to write something down. So I was like,
Yeah.
the sky is blue today. I got up at this time. This is what I had for breakfast, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, whenever I do a burn letter like that, it's like even just watching it burn, I swear like I can feel the shift in my body once it's all burnt to the ground. It's
do
a
you
good
write
feeling.
like bad stuff that you think about yourself?
Yeah, I've done that. Like I've written letters to myself and I've written
It just doesn't like
very
it's
hateful
gonna.
letters to
That's what
certain
I'm saying.
people.
That feels very like, I don't know. I guess my like natural 80s baby inclination is to not like, you don't do anything with the negative, like you don't go there. It's like, you, why would you want to write it down, and like why would you say the meanest things? And then I guess burning it is cool, but it's very like visceral and blah, I don't know, it just feels like
Well, how is not
too
addressing it working
much.
for you?
Not at all, for a long time. It just, I think it's not that I don't address it, it's just that I don't address it hard enough. Like
Yeah.
I like poke into things and I'm like, okay, I did it. Yay. Like,
Yeah,
oh
it's
look, I did
the
this one thing. Cool. And then everybody else is like, no, like you didn't,
like
you gotta
get
do.
in there, feel the feels, use the
So
F word.
stupid. It sounds stupid. I was cussing a lot last night. Dude, I came home last night, and normally Sean and I are very big on like, hello, if we're awake, kisses, hugs, and like, how was your day? How was your day? I came home, I threw my shit on the ground. I practically accidentally kicked my dog. I didn't do it on purpose, but he was all up in my grill, and I was like,
Yeah.
and I like went in the bathroom, I slammed the door, and I'm like, I need to be alone. And I turned on all the water, and I just screamed really loud.
Good.
I cried, and then I came out, and he was very like, "Are you okay?"
Good.
Because he takes a lot of this shit personally, and
Yeah.
and it's hard sometimes for me because I really know it's not personal to him. I'm mad at this is an ultimate example of being angry with yourself. Like very obvious to me. Like if I saw him do this, I'd be like, oh, he is real pissed at himself. I'm just gonna give him some space. Cool. But for him, sometimes this time he actually did pretty good. But sometimes he feels very like slighted. Like I'm upset with him because I was short with him. Or I'm upset with him because I didn't say hi and hug him and give him a kiss and then go cry in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, it's so weird because my 2-4 generator ex-husband would do the same thing. I'm like, this isn't about you. Go away. Like, just give me a hug.
And it's like sometimes I don't have it in me to explain to you in like great detail how this is not about you. Like you just have to figure it out.
Right. I just
Obviously
need you
I got a speeding ticket for fucking speeding. It's about me.
Yeah.
That's my fault.
And had a crazy day at work.
I'm like, I felt shitty about it. And I even told him that I'm like, I just feel really stupid. And like, he knows how I am about money. So he knows how I felt about that too. But
yeah,
this last time he was pretty good. He would just seem like very, and I was like, I don't want to talk about it. And he was like, after I came out, I yelled at him, I didn't want to talk about it. And then like 5 seconds later, I started talking about it. And he goes, I thought you didn't want to talk about it. And I said, well, I didn't, but I have to get some of the stuff out. And I don't know if he'll ever really get the soundboarding thing because he can't, everything is like, why'd you say that to me? Why did you use those words? Like this, that, and the other. And it's like, it's really literally just like, like I'm not trying to censor myself on purpose. So just let me like say some shit.
Right.
So he has a really hard time not taking things personally. He really does. I almost have to look at him and go, this is not personal. Please just let me talk. But then he'll tell me, why do you do that to my energy? He'll be like, well, now I'm worried about you and I'm stressed. And he's like, why do you do that to me?
Why do you do that to yourself, dude? Like, that's what I would ask. This isn't about you.
I know, but then if I say something like that, because I've said something like that before, he'll be like, well, so you can be affected by my energy and I'm not allowed to be affected by your energy.
This is why I'm single. I've had too many of these conversations. Like, I'm not explaining it to you if you can't just support me.
I'm just like, it's not a competition. I'm like, it's not a competition. Like, and we're not going to be equal in this whole thing. And that's why I tell them, like, it doesn't go that way. And if we're like having a legit argument, I don't usually bring up human design stuff because I know, like, first of all, he doesn't understand. So it's kind of mean to be like, well, I know this because of this. And he's like, well, yeah, I didn't know that. But lately he's been talking a lot more about like trusting the universe and like being affected by other people's energies and my energy, not just mine, but other people's. He only has 3 defined centers. So I know what he's talking about, but I'm also like, dude, you're a generator. Like this isn't, it's not the same effect on you. You don't amplify. That's the word, right? None of the other types do that shit, right?
They don't absorb as much. Yeah, like we're the cannibals again with Raw's weird imagery. Yeah. The generators are not.
All right, sorry, that was a lot of my personal shit, guys, but hey, you know, this is why I'm single. I love Rebeka. And I love my husband, and we're getting a lot better at the communication stuff because we try really hard and we really want the other person to succeed, and like we're really into the other person's stuff. Like he's really supportive of all my stuff, you know that.
Oh yeah.
But when it comes to like this kind of stuff, when I start to cry and I'm like, this is how we have to save money on this, and now we have to do this and this and this and this, I do throw a lot of shit at him. So I understand how it can be. He'd be like, hey, and he has gotten a lot better at it. I think sometimes he tries to ask me to not do certain things, and then I have to go, in my like experiment, are those things part of my process? Or am I like really laying some shit on him because I need him to take some of the blame or something. Like, am I asking something from him that I'm not really explaining with my words?
Yeah.
So it helps because it makes me look at the way that I communicate, because to me, I'm an amazing communicator. I'm the best, and he is not good. Like, that's how I see it. Not as much anymore. When we first got together, I'm like, oh my God, he is the worst at this, because he's just a little immature. And sometimes it's very like, well, if this is this, if I do this, and then you know this. And I'm like, it's not a competition to see who could be like, we're not equal in how much we need each other, or how much like space we need, or whatever it is. But I've gotten better and realized that it's not just like, I'm not perfect at communicating. And there's times when I do something in my communication and he points it out and I'm like, shit. Yeah, you're right. And then I try to go, oh, well, the only reason I did that is that, and I try to like explain it away. And I'm like, fuck, that's not right either. Like, and so there's a lot of times I'll just stop in the middle of our fight and I'm like trying to figure out, like, do I just apologize because he's right? Like, I did like project on him, or also there's stuff that he's coming up with words. Sometimes he'll say something. I'm like, where did you get this? Like, are you reading something? I don't know. Yeah. Today he was like talking about trust in the universe, and I like never heard him say that. And I was like, like, okay, look, I'm like, good for you. And he's like, well, isn't that what you do with your stuff? I'm like, yeah, but it sounds like it's easier for you to do than it is for me. So obviously. Fucking 2-4. I just trust the universe now, and I'm amazingly good at it.
Right.
I know. It's not like as you can see, there's a lot of times when I sort of like, I don't want to say blame him for stuff, but sometimes I'm just like, do you realize that stuff is easier for you? And it's not for me. And it's not just human design. He's a guy and I'm a girl. It's all the things that make we're both white. So, but like, it's all the things that make things easier for him from my perspective.
Because it's true in this society.
I know.
That's a fact. It's not a perspective.
I know. You're correct. But then when you look at it human design wise,
it's also easier.
I know, but it's hard. I don't want to look. I guess it's hard for me because I want to look at human design and like hearts and flowers and shit, and like all parts of it are amazing and positive. I guess that's what it is. I'm like, I want to look at all these things as positive things. And I don't want any type to think that it's harder to be that in life. But I think that you're correct. And I think that because of the society and where we live, like, that's just how it goes. Like, if we were a society raised by projectors and not essentially manifestors and then the generators that do the shit for them, and if it was like us first, then maybe this would be a lot easier.
I mean, there's just a lot of differences. And something else, this would make another good episode, maybe we should write down, is using human design where it's like as a guide for expansion versus using it as a label for excuses. And I feel like the line in between those two is really thin. So I feel like you're trying to avoid using it as an excuse, but also like you are intentionally using it as a way of understanding. Like, that's how I see it, where you're like, okay, well, based on your design, you're doing this, based on mine, I'm doing this. Like, you're doing this work to understand where things are coming from. It's not an excuse.
I don't think I let myself screw up enough or like go to the extreme in my thoughts of any one way. I don't let myself 3 it hard enough. This is all an episode of how I don't human design hard enough, you guys. I just don't. I need to really get it in there, because I feel like it's true. Like, when it comes to trusting things, I'm like, oh, I pretend to trust, and then third line, I'm like, a little mistake. Oh, that was fun. Like, oh, cool. We're gonna put something on Instagram without editing it. Like, stupid shit. But when it comes to like real life, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Being like taking risks. I wrote that down the other day because I was like, I don't really take risks because they freak me out. And I was thinking about like risks that I could take. And for me, it would be financial risks with my business. Like that would be the biggest risk, is to like pay for something to help my business. That to me is the biggest risk I can think of at this point, which isn't really that big of a risk when you think about it. But I realized that I don't really do this hard enough, I guess. I don't know. It feels very weird to say that out loud, but I've been thinking it. That I'm just kind of like, poop. I'll just kind of like stick my toe in the water, but I don't want to. I'll talk about it all day and I'll share like how I see my experiences through the lens of human design. But when it comes to like really experimenting with it, I don't know if I really do.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, this episode has gone all over the place, but there's one more thing I wanted to bring up and then we can be done, because I saw it recently. I think Kip posted it about how the whole thing about how projectors can't see themselves is kind of BS.
Knew you were going to bring that up. Yes. Because like I said, I've been listening to a lot of more lectures about projectors and stuff. And I'm like, wait, has Ross said that? I'm like searching my brain. So I'm like determined to find it. Like, where did that come from? So what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I like that he kept it as not all or nothing. Not like, yes, projectors can see themselves, duh. It's more of an individual projector experience. That's kind of the way it came across to me. I think because he put like a little poll or whatever and asked people what they thought. But when he was explaining it, it was more like don't automatically count yourself out from seeing yourself. Like just because that part I can get behind, because it feels very much like how we feel about human design. Don't automatically look at this thing and go, oh, well, I can never, make decisions this way, or I can never do this, or because the all or never thing, I'm not, but, and so he does kind of, but the way that he like, just kind of put it there, and I was just like, but this is what I've been taught since the very beginning, like that I do feel like I literally will try to turn a lens on myself and it's like fuzz buckets. Like it's a real thing that I try to do in my mind. I'm like, and it's like, so.
I will say for me, like it makes so much sense pre-human design. I had no idea who I was. I kept trying to figure out who I was. I kept asking my ex-husband to tell me who I was. And then knowing my design helps me to see myself more clearly. It helps me to make more sense of myself.
Yeah.
So I think it's like both things. But I think it is easy for me to forget sometimes, depending on what environment I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's harder for me to, like, if someone asks my opinion on something or my advice on something, a lot of times I need to like take a pause and like take a breath and like look away from them, and like you were doing this before we came on today. You're like, we were thinking, because we were putting it together in your head, and I knew I could see what you were doing. I'm like, she's putting it together. We're good. Okay, let's go. And it's just it's those things where I know I'm looking at myself. Like I know that I'm looking at myself and I'm looking at my processes, and I'm those points I understand. Like I agree with you. Like I can see myself. But I think sometimes when it comes to like, and this might just be for us, have a lot to do with the undefined G center. Is like I almost feel like that maybe not trumps the projector not being able to see yourself, but I really feel like that is a real big part of it. And I think it was Kip again, so I'm just shouting you out, Kip, that said something today about getting really comfortable with seeing yourself basically as through the identity of other people, because we basically absorb other people's identity. And I don't know, that one's hard. I have to work on that one, because it's just like you said, I don't want to look at somebody and be like, tell me who I am.
Yeah.
And is that what, that's not what he's saying. He's saying, I mean, it doesn't feel like that's what he's saying, but
No, to me, it feels like, let me play with this identity a little bit. Like,
yeah,
who
it
am I around
feels
this
much more
person?
objective, much more confident, and I won't lose myself. I'm just trying on a costume.
Yeah.
But then it's like, then that's where my whole, like, I have to be genuine and authentic, like, thing starts to freak out. And I'm like, how is this genuinely, authentically me if it's this other person? I don't know. That whole, the G center chameleon energy and how we are ourselves, but are not any one identity is very, like, I'm writing that one down too, because we have 2 new episodes from this one episode, so fantastic. I think I need to look at that more, because I didn't know. He's saying that Rod never said that, right? Is that the deal?
Yeah, that's what he said. And so, I mean, obviously I trust Kip. He's an
Yeah.
OG HD person.
Yeah.
But now it's like bothering all my one lines. I'm like, but where did I hear that? But where did it come from? And like, what did
You might
Ross
need
say?
to message him and ask him to tell you where he heard it, because
I might need
that might need
to.
to make you feel better. I mean, or you can just listen to all the stuff. I mean, one line, tomato, basically.
Yeah.
Go straight
I
to
know.
the source,
I like
or
how
like bulldoze through all of it.
I like how my first reaction is like, I've got to go re-listen to all the lectures. And you're like, why don't you just ask Kip?
Because I'll tell you. I mean, like I said, both of these things are fun for you as a one.
Yeah.
One just takes longer than the other. It's not like you're not going to do the other one. And you just need, we're like, oh, well, now I have to find this thing. Like, it was going to be, you're going to listen to the stuff.
Yeah.
I need to start listening to stuff. I listened to old school raw lectures when I first got into human design. And I think I like burned myself out on them. And I was like, I can't listen to these anymore, but I haven't listened to him in a while. And he's really good. Sometimes his dryness gets me, and I'm like, oh God. Because he's very like,
it drives me crazy when he goes off subject and he'll just start talking about a bunch of nonsense. I'm like, I'm here to learn about motivation. I really don't want to hear about this other thing.
That seems to be the consensus with raw lectures, is stick to the topic, but it's so not his type, not his design to do that.
It is not.
So it makes sense. So we fast forward through things. I think that's what, because sometimes this stuff is like 3 hours long. And I'm like, really? He talked about this for 3 hours? No, he did not. He talked about it for like 1 hour. And then
and there's like one lecture where he like gets real deep and certain, like he starts with fear motivation, right? But then by the time we get to innocence, he's like 2 minutes, like
you're like
dude, give equal amount of information.
I want more on innocence. Well, you got yours was first. Well, that's exciting.
Well, just because it's number one, like he would. So
we had somebody ask about desire motivation in the environment, and I had no idea what to say. It's my transference though, so I feel like I should have something to say.
I think I answered that on my page.
Okay, good. It's my transference, right? Innocence. That makes yes. Yeah. I guess I could say something along the lines of, I do feel like when I feel like desperate, like something has to happen or my head's gonna explode, I think that's when I'm like, oh, this is probably desire.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe I caught a break with that one, innocence, because it feels, in the desire, they feel very like, I get what they mean. A lot of my shit, I don't really get what it means sometimes, but I'm like, oh, innocence motivation makes no sense. It's not, it's essentially like my authority. It's no motivation.
It's like, and then like for me with fear and need, I feel like they're so similar. It's taken me a while to unpack. Right?
Those are really similar. But when you, innocence and desire are totally like, they're opposite, essentially. Like I have opposite. I never really thought about that. Yours are very close. Oh.
It feels like it. So, but it's the same for me. Like when I'm in a desperate situation, then that's how I can tell, like I'm getting really needy. When I look back, it makes sense where I'm like, I need to get this done. I need to have this thing. Whereas within fear, I'm like, okay, let's build a foundation for this thing that I am creating.
Yeah, that might help a lot of people if it feel, that's how kind of how Jess Fields described fear versus intuition in her course, was like, fear is very like pushy, and it gives you a time limit. If you don't do this by this time, something bad will happen, or like usually it gives you an ultimatum or like a time limit or something that makes you like, oh my God. And intuition is more like, take it or leave it, like nothing bad's gonna happen, you have all the time in the world to figure this out, it's cool.
It's a calm
And-
confidence. Yeah.
And that's how I feel about innocence versus desire, is it's supposed to just be like cool, and then desire is like, ah. So those, I feel like of my design, those are the two things that I come like, oh, I can describe this, I can see this, I got this, I know what these mean. Don't ask me about my authority, because I don't know, it's stuff that we do. Okay, so this was a great one as usual. If you all have questions or comments, let us know. We'll be back again soon.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the mental projector being a hybrid vibe. Also, I gotta say, I keep looking at myself in the camera. It totally looks like I'm not wearing clothes, so I am wearing clothes.
Yay! Rebecca's wearing clothes, and I'm just gonna put something right here. We will most likely have a guest on that is going to totally freak us both out. We're going to be super excited and fangirl and freak. So
yeah,
you should get ready for that one. It
hasn't
happened. It hasn't happened yet, and I don't believe in like jinxing, so I know I didn't jinx it. Like, we're adults.
It's in the works, and we are very excited.
I waited too long for it to be a legit jinx, so like things are happening already. So it's wheels are turning, and I just have to say that it wouldn't have happened without you or me.
It wouldn't have happened without you. Like,
it wouldn't have without us, man.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's like, it's cool to think about that sometimes when I'm in my like funk, my junkie funkies, is like, I look back at the stuff that we've actually done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, I've recorded like over 100 podcast episodes. Amongst all the podcasts, it's been over 100 episodes that I think I've done, or close to 100, because it's over 50 on my Chatting Human Design, and then we did a ton of weather reports.
Transit,
those that was like a lot of them too. So it's kind of cool to be like, okay, I actually have like accomplished some things when I feel like I'm just floating around, not really accomplishing things. So thanks for listening to us, because without you, we would still be doing it, but it wouldn't be as fun. Yay! All right.
All right. Bye, y'all.